Hello, and welcome to Cover the Credits, the bi-weekly podcast where we discuss books and their movie adaptations. I'm Ian George.
And I'm Adina Hilton. In this episode, we'll be discussing Christmas with the Kranks, aka Skipping Christmas. Christmas with the Kranks was originally published the book form as Skipping Christmas, and it was written by John Grisham and published in 2001.
And the film adaptation came out in 2004 and was directed by Joe Roth, written by Chris Columbus of Home Alone fame.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're our holiday episode.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yes.
Just to paint everyone a picture, we've got our Christmas tree up. Adina's wrapped in a blanket. We've got wine.
We are ready for this.
We had to prep ourselves as much as possible to be able to talk about this movie and this book.
Yeah, so when we were talking about, we really wanted to do a Christmas or holiday episode. And we were like, okay, so we could go with the classics, A Christmas Carol, which is probably the most classic book that was adapted to many movies. But we're like, let's just do something that's totally not what anyone would expect.
And then I was like, you know what? I'm pretty sure Christmas with the Kranks was a book.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it was by John Grisham himself.
Who is like a really popular crime writer, lawyer type fiction.
He does a lot of legal thrillers.
Yeah.
He did the Pelican Brief, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
other
stuff. Such books.
He's still publishing now, but this was a departure for him, and he decided to do a Christmas book, and it's only 170, 180 pages, so it's kind of a quick read.
Yeah, it was really short. But it did not feel short.
No.
I have not, honest to God, Twilight was way easier to read than this.
Oh my God, really?
It was so hard for me to get through. It was really, 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 really hard.
For a movie about a season of joy, this book was very joyless to read. I felt the same way. I never really wanted to pick it up.
Yeah.
And even though I could get through a ton of it, just in a half hour amount of time, because it's so quick and easy to kind of skim through, I was still no, I'm going to read something else. I don't want to read this.
Yeah. I would read one chapter and be like, yeah, that's
it for me.
That's enough. I'm done now. Well, and something I've read from reviewers about this book that is so true, it's they say it's mean-spirited. And that's very true. It's very mean-spirited.
It does feel that way. Yeah. Yeah, and sorry we're already talking about how terrible this book is immediately, but honestly, we can't even hold back to be let's talk about at the end if it was bad or not.
Let's kind of tease.
No, it is bad.
Although you can probably guess what we thought about the movie as well. So the question of which is better is still a mystery.
So I haven't really decided yet, and I think this discussion will hopefully help me decide which one is worse, and maybe Ian can convince me. I don't know.
I've decided.
I'm just wow. Christmas trash. This is Christmas trash.
It's the waste baskets after you've opened gifts in the morning, just stuffed with all the tinsely garbage.
Yeah, and it looks pretty, but it's just trash when it comes down to it.
Empty, heartless.
It's Christmas
garbage.
Trash, but trash nonetheless.
Yeah, Christmas trash. But isn't that's kind of the nice thing about Christmas trash is even for as bad as it is, there's still something about it that's
oh, it's Christmas.
It's Christmas time. It's the season.
Yeah. The season for trash. So, yeah, let's set up the story.
Mm-hmm. It starts off with Luther and Nora Krank, and they're dropping their daughter off at the airport.
Yes.
Because she is now in the Peace Corps and going to Peru to work with children or something.
Yeah.
They don't get into it too much.
Yeah, and it almost feels like the author, and in the movie too, they're sort of almost kind of making Blair out to be kind of silly, which is their daughter Blair.
Yeah.
Oh, she joined the Peace Corps. She's kind of just graduated and stupid.
So very
going
young,
to the jungle.
Yeah, it's a very young liberal thing to do kind of.
Mm-hmm. Upper class people would do a Peace Corps year, But at the same time, it it is kind of cool that she wants to do something after graduation and not just like get into the workforce immediately. I thought that was like, they were kind of being a little unfair to her.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, it's like, yeah, she's just doing this thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's something that we'll be saying
Oh my
frequently
God.
throughout this story is they're doing this thing and it's
that's
fine.
fine.
It's all fine. Everyone calm down about this thing.
Yeah. And so the Kranks are basically like, you know, she's gone now and Christmas isn't going to be the same because she won't be back for like a whole year. She'll be in Peru for a year. And Nora, the mother, of course, is like, is she going to be safe? Like, is she going to be okay? And she asks the question, is she safe, to Luther, her husband, like 15 times in the book. And I wanted to just be like, he doesn't know.
He has the same information you have.
Is she safe? Yes. I don't know. We haven't heard otherwise. Like, so they're all upset about her leaving. And right after she leaves, there's this scene where Luther has to get some stuff from like the grocery store. And there's like tons of people in there and it's raining and he gets wet. And he's just like, I hate stuff and life is bad.
It pretty much plays out the same in the movie.
Yeah.
The only thing is there's like, it's much more slapsticky in the movie. There's like a Santa who keeps trying to sell him an umbrella. And he's like, no, I don't need it. I'm already super wet. And then like,
he keeps getting wetter.
He keeps getting wetter. And it's lots of chuckles. They're reading at the very beginning of this, though. I caught early on this idea that maybe this book was a bit of a rush job or a cash grab.
Oh, yeah.
One of the early indicators was at one point in the book, you know, they drop her off at the airport and they're heading back. And Luther talks about he couldn't wait to get home, dry off, and sit by the fire. And I'm like, dry off from what?
Yeah.
Why is he wet? And then, like, 2 sentences later, he mentions it's raining.
Yeah.
I'm like,
little things like that.
Yeah, little tiny things that you're like, that, what? I wasn't following.
And you almost feel like it's a situation where like, oh, it's John Grisham, this like best-selling author, is writing this Christmas story. Of course, like we don't really need to like proofread this and
He
be
knows
like,
what he's
what is
doing.
happening with this plot? We shouldn't accept this. It's like, oh, we've already accepted to publish this. It's not like some random author submitting this draft.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is this Christmas trash?
One of the big differences, though, for me is that early on, you kind of get the idea that Luther of the book is just pure, like, annoyance in human form.
Yeah.
He's just annoyed and grumpy and curmudgeon-y. And
that's his character.
yeah, that's his entire character. And it's just kind of this Christmas stereotype.
Yeah.
A big Christmas curmudgeon guy.
Yeah. And I've heard some reviews of this book kind of compare it to A Christmas Carol. Like, oh, like Scrooge type grumpy man who like learns the true meaning of Christmas.
Well, yeah. And I think either John Grisham or someone, maybe the book itself, like compared to the two.
Yeah.
Because I heard that also. People were like, they might like to compare it to A Christmas Carol, but
Not quite.
but at least in the movie, like Tim Allen, for, you know, as average as he is in a lot of ways, like he's comfortable in this kind of role. He does bring a certain amount of like likability to it.
I mean, he has that comedic ability
He
to
does.
kind of like play that up a lot. And I feel like the movie does this a lot, where there are these scenes in the book that are kind of funny and weird, but then they like hype it up to like 10 in the movie.
Yeah.
Like the rain scene is a good example. And in the
Yeah.
book, it's just like he's going to the store and he like steps in a puddle and it's raining and he's like, "Mer, mer, mer, mer." And then in the movie, of course, like a car goes by and drenches him, and then this awning breaks and just like drenches, you know, like
Yeah.
it kind of takes it up a notch.
It does. But then again, the book isn't funny.
No,
The book's not funny.
the book is not.
It's like, it's so, it's just like, oh, he stepped in a puddle and he's cold now.
Yeah.
Laugh with me, people. These are the jokes.
Yeah.
He just kind of, he doesn't write it in a funny way.
No.
Like, there are setups for things that could be funny, but ultimately he's not actually trying to sell the joke. He's just like, oh, now kids are trying to sell him a Christmas tree and he's turning them down.
Yeah.
He's saying no to Boy Scouts. Like, those are it's just describing the scene. And I've read other people say this, like, the book almost feels like a pitch for the movie. It's like, here's the rough draft of the movie.
Yeah.
In book form. This is what you can use to make the movie.
Yeah.
Which I totally buy into.
So he's like upset about stuff and Blair's gone. And so he gets this like crazy idea. Crazy Adina. It's so insane that the other characters of the story can't wrap their mind around it. So are you ready? The crazy idea is that instead of celebrating Christmas, Luther and Nora are going to go on a cruise instead of doing the whole Christmas thing. So they decide to skip Christmas and go on a 10-day cruise instead and just enjoy their lives because they're middle-aged now and their daughter has just left, for a year. And they're like, let's just live it up. Let's just enjoy ourselves. And everyone, like, while they're telling them this, is like drinking water. And they tell them, they're like, oh yeah, we're not doing Christmas this year. We're going on a cruise. And then everyone just like spits out their water and they're just like, what?
That is exactly like, there's just, and this is the structure basically of the entire book, is that it's scene after scene after scene after scene after scene of Luther and Nora telling people about they're either just telling people about their plan.
Yeah.
And the person's like, what? Yeah. Like, just, they're just, you're not doing Christmas? Like,
yeah.
And, or they're people who are like selling things for Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, the Boy Scouts selling Christmas trees. And seriously, there's 3 situations of this happening, like,
exactly the same way.
Playing out the same way. Boy Scouts selling Christmas trees for a fundraiser. Police officers selling
calendars.
Yes, calendars for fundraisers. And not for them, for like kids with cancer and stuff. And a firefighter selling fruitcakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they show up, they try to sell the thing. Luther's like, we're skipping Christmas. And they're like, I don't understand you. The words that are coming out of your mouth are incomprehensible.
Like, what? You hate children? And he keeps offering, he's like, I'll donate like extra money in the summer when you do your summer fundraiser. And they're like, okay, but you're basically the worst person I've ever met.
Yeah, he's like, I'll give you guys more money when you do that, like for the Boy Scouts. He's like, you guys do that camp outing in the spring, right? Yeah. I'll give you guys $100 when you do that. Like in the book, he's like much more.
Yeah, he's kind of reasonable. He's like,
Yeah.
we're not doing this now, but I will like chip in later. And they're all like, what? You're so awful. Ugh.
He's more unlikable in the movie in that way, that he's just flat out refusing to buy anything for fundraisers. And at one point, like, he bends over to look at the Boy Scout. He's like, we're going on a cruise. He's like
proving himself to children.
Yes. He's just yelling at this child in the face that he's going on a cruise. But another aspect of this is that he, as a tax accountant, he did the math on how much they spent the previous Christmas. Yeah. And he found out it's $6,100.
Yeah. How do you spend that much money on Christmas? Like, I don't understand how you could spend that much money on Christmas,
it's
honestly.
Unreal.
Yeah. And it's just like, wow.
And this, I know.
Wow.
And this is kind of like touching on the whole, I don't know how to put it. Like, this is about upper middle class white people.
Oh, yeah. The demographic.
Upper middle class white people problems. Not that they're ever described as white other than Luther and Nora. Yeah. But I mean, come on.
They're all white.
They're all white.
And they're like in the Midwest, and I don't know. It's just a very like specific type of like slice of people. And they're the type of people that would be shocked that if you said you weren't doing Christmas stuff. Like if anyone else in real life said, oh, I'm just like not doing Christmas this year, people would probably be like, oh, okay, like that's your choice. Like, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like everyone has to like freak out about it. I don't know.
Well, and Luther's perspective on shit is also this way. When he's turning down the police officers to give them money, he's like, I pay my taxes. I pay your salaries.
Ugh.
So, you know. You know.
But you know.
And they're like, this isn't for us. This is for, like, kids. It's a fundraiser, you idiot. But, like, he's very... And this is, like... Who are we supposed to side with on this?
Yeah, it is weird because Luther is such an ass, like, the whole book. Even though he's a little more reasonable in the book than in the movie. And Nora is just annoying. I'd like to talk about Nora for a little bit because...
Yeah.
So she's like this, you know, housewife. She doesn't have a job, which is fine, but she's kind of this socialite, does all this volunteer work, but like she obviously has a comfortable enough life with her husband that she can do this.
Yeah.
And it's almost like this like rich white people, like women's circle where they're like, oh, we do charity work. But we're also like really gossipy and all this stuff.
And catty and
that she's always telling like her friends all this stuff, and they're always, and every scene they're just like really bitchy to her the whole time. And there's this one scene in particular where they're literally at a domestic violence center and they're talking about like some kind of fundraiser thing that they're doing for the women's shelter, and then her friends find out that she's not doing the Christmas Eve party that they do every year. And they're like, you're not doing the Christmas Eve party? This is like the worst thing that has ever happened in the world. And we're in a domestic violence shelter right now.
I know. I just can't like wrap my head around that. I don't know. And this goes back to, I don't know what how self-aware is John Grisham writing this?
Yeah.
Like, you almost feel like he can't not be aware of that irony.
Yeah.
But it's not played up in that way.
No.
It's just kind of this whole shtick, like, goofy joke, like, the whole premise of the movie that they want to skip Christmas and no one can wrap their heads around it.
Yeah.
It's not like any kind of commentary on
people
social class.
Yeah, social class or having
Yeah.
like concern, like these really silly concerns that are nothing compared to the larger issues going on. Like, yeah, there's none of that.
Because I think if it was, they at some point would have to be faced with like real people's shit. You know? Like at the holidays, like, oh, our problem is we don't have enough money to buy our kids Christmas presents.
I mean, I think they
know?
sort of try to do that with the one neighbor family. Like the woman in the one family, Bev, has cancer.
Yeah.
So they're sort of like, oh, well, like she has cancer. And so that you should like feel bad for her and remind yourself that you could also have cancer, I guess. But yeah, the whole like economics of Christmas, like they talk about it being expensive, but they don't really talk about what that means for lower income families and how people in different social classes wouldn't even have this problem because they can't even conceive of having enough money to even buy gifts for their children, let alone like throw a Christmas Eve party.
Yeah.
It's just like
for this to actually be satire, like you would have to have some kind of, I think, contrast.
Foil for that.
Yeah, in which you're actually seeing this other side and like comparing the two. In my opinion, I don't know. Because I've heard people bring up the possibility that this is supposed to be kind of a social satire, but I'm not buying it.
No, I don't think it works. It would have needed a few more editing drafts to get to that place.
It would have needed at least one round of edits,
Yeah.
which this book didn't get, I don't think.
So, you know, they're going along with this cruise plan, and Luther and Nora are super into it. First, Luther has to convince Nora, but then she's like, yeah, that would be great. Like, this is actually a really good idea. And so they start like tanning because they want to be like a little tan for their cruise. Mm-hmm. And then they also go on diets, which it's not really mentioned in the movie, I think, to their betterment. But in the book, they talk a lot about how they're both on this diet and they're like not eating food.
Yeah.
And they're just like starving all the time.
They get home and they're like stuffing down this like steamed vegetables with like one serving of fish and are just like
eating plain yogurt.
But then on the other hand, like Luther knows that there's like unlimited food on this cruise and he's gonna stuff himself when he gets there. I'm like, this is so gluttonous and weird.
And like binging, purging type scenario almost. Yeah, they're like trying to starve themselves now so they can like eat a lot later on the cruise. Yeah, they have like really weird body image issues throughout the book that I was like, please stop talking about how you're literally starving right now.
I know. It's like we're starving. Meanwhile, like the lower class family who's trying to like feed their kids. Let's talk about the movie a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
We talked a little bit about Tim Allen just being fine. He's fine.
I mean, he's totally like, I feel like they cast him because of the Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And how he's like, oh, Tim Allen, like in a Christmas movie. Perfect. Like, let's get him.
He had already been in 2 Santa Claus movies at this point, so it was like...
Yeah.
Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays his wife.
Yeah.
She was not good in this.
No. I feel like the whole, like, last half of the movie, she's just, like, screaming. Like, she's always just like, oh!
She's just like, first of all, it seems like she needs to be on Xanax or something. She's just like really like up and down in like every direction, like emotionally. She's just like crazy and hyper. I almost feel like Jamie Lee Curtis was told like, hey, we're doing this movie, and it was written by Christopher Columbus, who did or I guess he goes by Chris Columbus, who did Home Alone.
Yeah. And
we want you to be in it. And, like, we kind of wanted to have that feel. And she's like, okay, I know exactly what you want. And she went home and she taped a picture of Macaulay Culkin to her mirror. And she's like, this is who I'm going to be now. Like, a crazy, like, hyperactive, like...
I mean, to be fair, she doesn't have a lot of material to work with.
No.
Because the portrayal of Nora in the book and in the movie is just like this kind of bitchy wife who sort of turns on her husband in a second and is basically like, now you have to do this. You need to get your like butt in gear, and you know, this was your like stupid idea, and kind of, I don't know, she's just kind of like nagging him a lot. And yeah, I don't know. But you're right. She does play her, like, very intensely.
Like, there's a part where the carolers show up at their house.
Yeah.
And she's on the phone with Luther. And she, like, runs around the bedroom and then literally jumps and hides under the covers.
That's true.
I'm like, what is happening? Are you a human?
Why are you hiding under the covers in your own home?
It's just very, very, very over the top.
Yeah.
But... that's also kind of like where this movie wanted to exist.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay, so now I would like to discuss the Luther sexism part of the book.
If you thought we could discuss a book that didn't get into gross sexism, you were wrong.
So Christmas, but also sexism. So this isn't really in the movie at all, which is smart, because it was one of the parts that I hated the most out of the book. And it's like Luther is kind of always like lusting after random women. Like he talks about how the travel agent that he booked the cruise through is like really like young and attractive, and how he likes to admire her body. And like he gets like a soda with her and like likes to talk to her and stuff. And then there are other parts too where he's talking about how he's imagining the string bikinis that he'll see on their cruise later on. And then another part where he's talking about some woman they know who's the wife of some person they know. And he was like, yeah, she was really annoying, but he didn't mind it too much because she was really hot for her age. And I was like, well, why is this happening?
Cool, Luther. Awesome. Well, and so many of the guy characters in this book are that way.
Yeah.
There's a guy he works with who comes to his office and he's like praising him for this idea, and Luther's being all smug about it. And that's the thing. He's always smug about this idea.
Yeah.
If people are mad about them skipping Christmas, he's happy and smug about it. If they're praising him, he's happy and smug about it. You just can't like him in any capacity.
He's like self-congratulating about everything.
Yeah. But this guy's telling him like, oh, this is such a great idea. Like, and Luther's like, yeah, you should take a cruise with your wife. And he's like, oh, no, I couldn't stand it. I'd throw her overboard after one day.
And you're like, oh my
Jesus
God.
Christ.
Yeah. All the women in this book are just like overbearing and bossy and naggy.
Yeah. And like, yeah, so many of them are naggy. Just like that's kind of the whole setup is just
Nagging
the
wife.
wives being naggy, yeah. Like yelling at their husbands while they're on the roof, like stringing Christmas lights or what have you.
Yeah, and there's a part too where he and Nora go to like dinner and a movie, and Luther is just like hating every second of it.
Yeah.
In the book, he's like, "Ugh, I only do this to like humor Nora so that she like won't be mad at me." I'm like, you are so awful if you can't go to like one movie with your wife, you like terrible person. He like walks out halfway through it.
Yeah, he's like, I have to go to the bathroom or something. And then he's just like walking around the mall.
Yeah.
Like he just leaves her.
And then he like looks at this model, like a cardboard cutout model or like a poster of a woman in a bikini. And he's like, oh.
Yeah.
It's gross. It's so gross.
Also, like, I don't think this is so much Luther's character as just the writing.
Yeah.
But he's very extreme in his reactions. And I think John Grisham thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
But it's really awful, kind of. Like, at one point when there's an incident where he's, like, publicly embarrassed in front of, like, the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he thinks, like, it was the first time he ever actually contemplated suicide.
I'm like, come on.
Dude.
This is ridiculous.
And then there's another time, and I forget the context, but I have the book open. It said, if Luther had had a machine gun, he would have bolted outside and commenced spraying houses.
Wow.
I'm like, is this what passes as funny in this book? And I mean,
is this what you think like middle-aged white men like think?
And this was 2001, so like not
Yeah.
as politically charged as it would be today, but still, like that's not even like kind of funny.
No, that's not funny. Speaking of politically charged, there's another part where he's talking about the office Christmas party at his work and how he's like skipping that. And he is talking about how everyone gets really drunk and then all the like accountants get so drunk that they try to grope all the secretaries, even like the homely ones. And I'm like, okay, office place sexual harassment is never okay, especially with like what's been happening lately, but like never okay, not even then, to joke about that. And he just kind of like played it off like, oh, they get drunk and then they try to like sexually assault the women that they work with. And it's just like, oh. I was reading that and I was just like, oh my God.
There was a point where we were both reading this book, like at slightly different points side by side on the couch, and just every 5 minutes one of us would go like, oh my God, page 122. You're not gonna believe it. I'd be like, oh my God, I just got to that part on page 96 where he talks about Mexico or something.
Oh my God.
So bad. So should we get to the turning point then?
Yeah, and so there's this big twist in the book around halfway through.
Who would have guessed? They get a call from their daughter, and she's coming home for Christmas.
Yeah. And she's like, it's only been a month.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah. She calls them on Christmas Eve, and they're going to leave for their cruise on Christmas Day. So they're like packing. And she's like, I'm coming home. I'll be there at like 6 p.m. And she's like, I'm bringing my new boyfriend that I met in Peru, and we're engaged. And they're all like, what is happening?
And she's like, you're having the party, right? And you're gonna be like, have like the pie I love and everything.
Yeah,
right,
you're gonna
Mom?
like do everything for me like you've always done.
And Nora just is like, yeah, sure, of course. Like, of course we're gonna do this. And then like when they get off the phone, Luther's like, you what? No, we can't.
We can't. We have our cruise tomorrow.
We have our cruise. We can't have them.
And Nora, of course, is like, no, we're giving Blair the best Christmas she's ever had, and you are gonna get your butt in gear.
This is where Nora takes this like radical turn in the book specifically.
Yeah.
Because in the book, she just unloads on Luther. She's like, this was your stupid idea. Like, this is all your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you idiot. Like, she just like unloads on him.
And it's like, you liked the idea too. Like you should have, because it was a reasonable idea. But yeah, she just like wants someone to blame for it, I guess. And she's just like, now you're going to suffer all day, and we have to like get a tree, we have to get food for the party, we have to call people and invite them, we have to decorate the house, we have to do all of this crazy shit.
We have to go through this whole series of contrived events in order to like prepare for Christmas.
Yeah, and they're like, we can't tell Blair about the cruise because then she would feel bad if she knew that we couldn't go because of her. And it's just like a ton of people like not communicating well with each other.
And it made me so mad because like Luther was the logical one in this situation. And I was mad for Grisham making us like not relate, but like agree with Luther.
Because he's been so terrible this whole time.
I know. But he's like, listen, she called way too late. Like, she shouldn't have called this late. She can't expect us to like bend backwards.
Everything.
Yeah, to drop everything. We just have to be honest with her. And Nora's terrible. And I'm also very mad at Blair for also doing this.
Yeah, like expecting her parents to do all this for her.
This is why surprises are awful.
Yeah.
Surprises are terrible.
Nobody likes surprises,
There's
honestly.
no good surprises. All surprises
unless it's
are
money,
bad.
All surprises are bad.
Yeah, unless it's money with no strings attached.
Yeah.
But like surprise proposals, awful. Stupid idea.
No, don't do it.
Never. Surprise parties?
It depends.
Depends. Maybe the person feels sick that night and they don't feel good.
Or maybe they're like wearing an outfit that they don't like and they feel bad the whole time.
A surprise lasts for like 1 second. It's not worth like all of the risks.
Yeah. So this begins the second part of the book and the movie where it turns into this wacky, crazy, like, day where the Kranks are just trying to get these impossible tasks done. They're like, we have to do all of these things and we only have like 2 hours to do them, and let's just kill ourselves to do this. And it's just like, I mean, I don't know, the first half kind of felt like a little bit of a commentary on the consumerism and materialistic aspect of Christmas, and then it completely drops it in the second act and it's just like, and now they literally pay like money out of their butts to like pull this thing off.
Yeah. Also, I'm just remembering this part. At one point in the book, Nora receives a letter from Blair talking about like the children she's helping in Peru and how it made her happy or okay with the fact of not celebrating Christmas because they didn't celebrate Christmas or like they didn't have anything.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm okay not having all the materialistic stuff of Christmas. And that like ensures Nora that like, okay, this cruise is okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But then Blair comes back and she's like, hey, where's all the shit I love at Christmas time?
Yeah, where's that like caramel pie that you make me and my honey ham?
I want my honey ham, damn it.
So as long as we're talking about the honey ham, there's this great scene in the movie where Nora is at the store trying to buy honey ham because apparently Blair loves hickory honey ham.
Which is just ham in a huge can, which I've actually never seen before. But
yeah, it just is like canned ham. And I'm like, that doesn't look that good, but I don't know. I don't eat ham. But she's at a store and she literally gets into like this race with this other woman with a shopping cart to try to get the ham. And then she doesn't get it. And then there's this other couple that she literally like pays extra money to buy the ham from them. And then she's walking back to her car and then the bag breaks and the ham rolls down the street.
And somehow this crazy oblong can manages to just roll perpetually across like the parking lot.
And into the street, into oncoming traffic.
And Nora almost kills herself jumping in front of a semi-truck to save this ham.
To save the ham.
But honestly, the really genuinely just funny part, though, was like when the truck runs over the ham and Nora screams. And she's played by Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
So she gives this great horror movie scream when the ham gets run over.
She's like,
like this, like she's being murdered, like scream, which was actually genuinely pretty funny. So.
And then when she gets back to the house and Luther asks her about the ham, she's like, don't mention hickory honey ham to me ever again. It's so good.
It was the one gag with Nora in the movie that was actually like
really funny.
Yeah, really genuinely funny and like played off well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they get the tree and they get the food.
Some of the food.
Do you think, okay, this is something I wanted to bring up about the book. Do you find it weird because there's different neighbors and characters like that?
Yeah.
And they're not even worth describing as individual people because they're just all the same. Yeah, they're just a collective mass. But the way the book, it mostly follows Luther and Nora.
Yeah.
Their perspective. It's like written in third person, but around them. But then the book will just kind of shift to
Yeah,
the
one of the
perspective of
neighbors.
neighbors and like what they're thinking, not just what they're doing, but like their perspective and what they're thinking and stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
And it's not like there's no line breaks or anything. It just kind of like, I don't know. It was just very strange to me the way it shifted back and forth.
Yeah, I don't know if it was supposed to make them less of a villain because they were just complete antagonists the whole book.
Yeah.
You know, they're just like, oh, we have to punish you for like not doing the things that we're all doing around Christmas.
I know. But yeah, that was just, it kind of threw me the first time it happened. And I think,
I noticed that too.
because I think like 80% of it follows Nora and Luther. So when it does slide out of that perspective occasionally, it's just like, what?
Yeah, it feels a little weird.
Yeah, kind of a convenience, I don't know, of storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Luther has to get Frosty on the roof now, which we haven't talked about Frosty yet. But it's like this street tradition that they have this giant, like 6-foot Frosty that lights up that they put on the roofs of the houses. And then they win these like Christmas decorating competitions. I don't know. House lighting up decorations. I don't know. Anyway, they refused to put it up all December because they were like, we're skipping Christmas. We're not putting up the Frosty. And then like the neighborhood kids are like protesting and putting signs in their yard like free Frosty. And it's this whole thing. And then finally, with Blair coming back, Luther's like, oh, I have to get the Frosty on the roof.
Yeah. So this was actually the funniest part of the movie.
No, I liked it too.
Which really surprised me because I knew it was going to be kind of slapsticky, or I thought it was going to be more slapsticky, I guess, than it was. But when Luther's dragging the Frosty, he's got like a rope tied around it and is like dragging it onto the roof. And he's tied the rope in a noose around Frosty's neck as he's like hoisting it up, which was just a funny detail. Like it wasn't, no like actual attention was drawn to it, but it was so clear. It was funny. And then he's got it up on the roof and he's trying to like position it so he can tie it to the chimney. And at this point, all of the neighbors have like they see what's going on and they've like all come out of their houses because none of them know why he's putting it up. But, you know, they see it's happening. So they come out. And this is a huge difference between the book and the movie. Mm-hmm. But in the book, everyone's kind of antagonizing him.
Yeah. And they're like
heckling
laughing at him.
And then, of course, as he's like grappling with this Frosty,
the 6-foot Frosty, he topples over with it, slides off of the icy roof, and luckily, like, an extension cord wraps around his ankle, and he, like, stops, like, 7 feet. Yeah, midair.
Above, like, his, like, pavement.
Yeah.
And there's still people who are, like, laughing and taunting him.
And I'm like, he could have died.
Like, you just almost watched a man die. Like, your children are here.
Yeah.
And you're, like, egging it on.
Weird.
It was like, so over the top. Like in terms of depicting these characters.
Yeah.
But actually in the movie when it happens, people are way more concerned.
Oh, yeah.
And are like, oh, you know, we got to help him. Like, you know, let's try to catch him and call like the fire department.
Plus it's super funny because as Luther's trying to put this Frosty up in the movie version, so he's like trying to get the Frosty and he's, you know, struggling with it. And he's like, come on, Frosty, like, don't do this to me. Like, we got this. And then he like looks up at Frosty and just like the black coal eyes suddenly like start to like, there's little like flames inside them. And he's like, no. And like the flames get stronger and then it like topples him over.
It's like leaning on top of him, like almost like heavier.
It's like trying to kill him. And I love the evil Frosty storyline in this movie. Like, it's so good.
There's another funny part where when they're hiding from carolers in the basement, they're like by the furnace, just like keeping warm. And they happen to look over and there's the Frosty like stored behind the furnace, but just illuminated by like firelight.
Yeah. And they're just like scream and run away. Yeah. I really like the evil Frosty.
Well, and I was going to say those scenes remind me a lot of a kind of Home Alone humor.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it reminds me specifically of the scene in the basement.
Oh, with the furnace.
With the furnace.
Yeah.
This kind of like
sentient
like object of like, you know, that's kind of scary but like more funny. And I'm like, this is kind of the humor that's very close to Home Alone, and
Yeah.
what I actually think is like the most like the funniest of the book.
stuff that works in the movie.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene earlier where Luther like ices the sidewalk in the movie.
Oh my God,
Because
yeah.
he's like trying to keep the carolers from caroling on their sidewalks. He's like, I'll just turn it to ice. And I'm like, oh my God, this is straight out of Home Alone.
I know.
Like literally he ices the sidewalk and they like slip and fall and it's this funny thing.
Chris Columbus is just like at home, like writing late at night, and he's like, I'll just reuse it.
Ice the sidewalk. It's a classic.
Works every time. So after his near-death experience and the ambulance is there, Luther finally fesses up to the neighborhood that Blair's coming home, and that's why they're actually throwing the party now and having Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And Frohmeyer?
Yeah,
Or Frohmeyer?
Vic Frohmeyer.
Who is played by I knew I was gonna blank on his name when I came to have to say it. Dan Aykroyd. He's played by Dan Aykroyd.
Nice save.
Thank you. And he's kind of like the big shot in the neighborhood, but he kind of corrals everyone together and is like, okay, everyone, you might hate Luther, but we all like Blair. She babysat our kids, and we want to throw her a good Christmas. So,
yeah. And he like rallies the whole community together, and he's like, all right, everyone get food and bring it over, and then let's decorate the house, and then let's get someone else's Frosty and put it on the Luther's roof so it looks like they have a Frosty, and let's decorate the front for them, and we'll get all this together. So, I mean, it's like supposed to be this heartwarming scene where all the community sort of like rallies together.
yeah.
But I feel like it happens too late.
I mean, are they just doing it because they're getting what they want?
Yeah, because
Like-
they're finally conforming to like the Christmas vibe. I don't know.
Yeah, like the whole movie has been them like persecuting them for not celebrating Christmas. And now it's like, oh, you're finally doing it. Okay, we'll help you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel heartwarming
No.
at all.
No, especially because they've been like terrible the whole story. You know, they've just been like mean to the Kranks this whole time, like literally harassing them.
Like this story should have been how I wish Luther was less shitty, but
Yeah.
it should have been how Luther and Nora were right.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, we don't have to we don't have to do Christmas.
Yeah.
Like we're not beholden to anyone.
It's like, hey, we want to do this thing. And people are like, oh, they should be like, oh, that's cool. Like you do your
Yeah.
thing.
Hey, we're doing this thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you can't even side with Luther and Nora because they're just so off, and they're really smug in the book.
Oh, yeah.
Like at one point they're eating dinner and they're like looking around at like a restaurant.
Yeah.
And they're like scoffing at all the pale faces.
Yeah, because they're like tanning.
Because they're really tan now.
Oh my God.
You just wanna punch
Well,
them.
and there are other parts too, like in the movie where they come, like all the neighbors are putting up their Frosty. And you know that there's this like competition that's coming up. And they're like, hey guys, like, I know you're not doing Christmas, but just like bring Frosty out to the front porch and we'll put him up for you. Like, we just want him up so the whole street can get judged. And like, they refuse to do that too. And I'm just like, why wouldn't you just give them the Frosty if they're going to put it up themselves?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, don't just do it because of your pride and you're just trying to be like all smug and superior about it, you know?
Same with like donating money to these
Yeah.
charities. Like he was so adamant about like, oh, we're doing this to save money. Like we're gonna save $3,000 this year. Well, like the total amount of money they asked you to donate was like $300.
Yeah.
Which you've done in previous years, so you're certainly capable of it. Like
Why refuse?
You're still saving money if you donate some to these charities.
Yeah. Yeah, it just felt kind of like rubbing it in their faces type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone in this book is just awful.
Everyone's awful. You can't side with anyone.
No.
Not even Blair.
No, because even Blair, like, there's this part in the book where she gets off the airplane with her boyfriend Enrique, and she doesn't see her parents there waiting for her, and she's like, "Ugh, why aren't they here?"
I know.
And I'm like, you literally called them like 6 hours ago and were like, hey, pick me up.
I know. I am so annoyed that Blair and no one ever like she goes back and they have the party and everything
Yeah.
and like
No one calls her out.
no one calls her out on her shit about
No.
like calling at the last minute
And just expecting her parents to cater to her every whim.
and she'll never know the shit her parents went through to bend over backwards for her.
Yeah.
And she's going to grow up and continue to be a shitty person because no one ever called her out on it. That's how
true.
this story ends. Blair is awful, like everyone else.
So her parents weren't waiting for her at the airport because they got a police escort to pick them up while Luther and Nora and the rest of the neighborhood planned the party. So like the police pick them up and then drive them back to the party. But in the movie, it plays out a little differently.
God. Yeah, they have to keep stalling because they're not ready yet.
At the party.
And so the police like are driving slow, and then at one point they say they have like a domestic disturbance they have to go see, and it leads to them like finding like a burglar and like
arresting him.
chasing him down and arresting him. And then how do they
I guess he was in the car with them. How do they transport all of them together? They don't show the burglar in the car with Blair and Enrique and the police officers, but like they only took one car and Blair and Enrique were already in the back and there were two police officers in the front. And then the burglar is in the car later, like just outside when they're having the party. And you're like, he was probably in the car with them, just like chilling.
I guess. There's a weird scene though where during the party he's still in the back of the police car.
Yeah.
And the two police officers are just inside, like, drinking
They just left
and eating.
him in the car.
And the window's down.
Yeah.
And he's, like, he stops the one kid who's, like, the neighborhood kid, and he's like, hey, I'm freezing to death out here. Can you let me out?
And then the kid lets him out. Like, somehow uncuffs his handcuffs and lets him out of the car. And he's like, just get some food, and then you're back in the police car. And the burglar's like, of course, because I would never do anything wrong.
I just think Chris Columbus didn't think this movie was Chris Columbus-y enough. He's like,
this is another Home Alone vibe.
we need a Christmas time robber.
We need a Christmas burglar.
Which is just has like a weird payoff at the end. It's just so weird.
It's such a really out of left field subplot because the whole time they're like having this party and everyone's so excited that they pulled this off and Blair is there with her boyfriend and everyone's like, yes, peace on earth, blah, blah, blah. And then this burglar is like stealing their valuables and then trying to like sneak out of the house.
Yeah.
And just like, this has nothing to do with any of the stories or the characters that we've been introduced to this whole time, and all of a sudden it's just like, and then there was a burglar.
Can we take a minute and discuss Enrique?
Oh yes.
And the color or not color of his skin and where he is from and all of the problems in the book about this.
Okay, so I am so ready.
You've got your book out.
I don't understand what Grisham was going for in this part of the book. Like, I honestly don't get it, but decide for yourself. So this is right after Blair has called them and told them that she's coming back and she's bringing her Peruvian fiance, Enrique. And so they're like planning and Nora's like, okay, you have to get the tree. I'll go get like food. And then Luther asks, don't Peruvians have dark skin? Nora froze for a second. They stared at each other, then both looked away. I guess it doesn't matter now, she said. I'm like, what? And then...
Okay, I can let you go.
Okay, and then, just in case you thought that was like a one-off, later on when Blair and Enrique actually arrive, the door opened and Blair rushed in. Nora and Luther both glanced at her first, then quickly looked beyond to see how dark Enrique was. He wasn't dark at all, at least 2 shades lighter than Luther himself. They hugged and squeezed their daughter as if she'd been gone for years, then, with great relief, met their future son-in-law.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
So the thing I think the first part was about was the fact that they had been tanning and were really dark at that point, maybe.
Maybe.
Like, I think John Grisham was like, oh, it would be awkward if, like, if they went to, like, greet their new son-in-law and they were out of nowhere, like, really dark themselves for no reason.
Yeah.
Is maybe, because just that comment about they looked at each other.
Yeah. Was
my thought. But that second part, though.
Yeah.
Is I don't know what it's
like
trying
they're relieved after they realize that he's light-skinned.
Well, and I should just say, the first time I read the book, or when I read the book, that first part, that's what jumped into my mind, was they were talking about their tanning and that.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, like I don't get how that's funny or
related or
anything like that, but I think that's what he was trying to get at or something. But that second part, especially when they were like super relieved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, here's a part where when the police officers pick them up at the airport and are driving them, the one police officer says, he's talking to them. He said, had a cousin, went to Mexico one time, Celino said, but let it go because there was nothing else to add. The cousin had almost died, etc. But Celino wisely decided not to venture into third world horror stories.
Like trying to relate, oh, you're from Peru, right? I had a cousin who went to Mexico once.
In another continent. Like,
yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, and it's such an ignorant statement.
It is.
That like, oh, Mexico and Peru, those are like the same place, right? Even though one's in North America and one's in South America.
Yeah.
And also like describing Mexico as a third world country, which
it's not.
It's not by how we refer to third world countries today. And like, it's such an ignorant statement, but like, it doesn't come across as purposefully ignorant.
No, and they don't acknowledge any of this beyond what we've said. Like they don't talk about it later and kind of throw some light on what is happening at all. And there's another part too where they're talking about Blair being in Peru and like being with the savages and stuff. And it's so racially insensitive, if not outright racist.
Yeah.
These things that are going on. So yeah, it was just super uncomfortable and it felt really kind of randomly thrown in there. And I'm honestly not sure what is happening in this book. Is like the author trying to show that these people are kind of racist because they're like in their like white middle class bubble? Or is he just throwing in like this racist stuff because those are his views? Or is he just putting it in for gag? Like, I don't know what's happening and it does not work. And it made me really uncomfortable.
Yeah, there were a lot of parts. Let's talk about the other part that we kind of skipped that was really uncomfortable just since we're on this topic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when they're tanning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Nora goes to tan and... God, we're tying in so many things with this. So Luther bought her a bikini.
Yeah.
Because he insisted on it.
Mm-hmm.
He bought it he made her buy it.
Yeah.
She purchased it. It was way too small, but Luther threatened her and was like, if you don't buy it, I will for you.
Yeah.
So she buys this bikini and she goes to the tanning salon to tan with it.
Yeah.
And then she's leaving the tanning place. And it plays out differently in the movie and book.
It does.
Both are equally weird and uncomfortable. In the book, she's got her clothes on over top of it and then runs into their priest in the mall. And the priest starts chatting her up and everything. And she starts talking about like how uncomfortable this bikini is.
And how she feels like it's falling off her.
Yeah.
Underneath her clothes.
I can't tell if it's like popping off her or falling off her or if it's just like too tight.
Yeah.
It's kind of weirdly vague about it. But something about it was very weirdly almost sexual.
Yeah.
Like some kind of like fantasy thing almost.
Yeah.
Like it was clearly trying to be funny, I think.
Like contrasting she was wearing this skimpy bikini underneath her clothes, but the priest couldn't see, but he's a priest.
Yeah.
But she talked about specifically that when she was wearing the bikini, even under her clothes, she felt slutty, like she was a slut. And I'm like, this is just the noise I've made this whole podcast. I'm just like, whoa.
Yeah, it's just super weird and just like
I didn't really get the point of it.
No. So then in the movie...
they're like, let's take this to 10, like we've taken every scene from the book and taken it to 10. So you imagine this scene like we just described it from the book. And you're like, how could I take this to 10? And you'd be like, oh, she's actually wearing the bikini and the priest sees her in the skimpy bikini.
Yeah, so when she's tanning, she bumps her head. She runs to the front desk for a Band-Aid. And because it's in a mall, she's kind of like in the entrance to the main atrium.
Yeah.
And of course, like her priest and other people are walking by and see her. And it's so weird because, like, it's like you're just supposed to be laughing at Jamie Lee Curtis and her body.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like, hey, look at her body. Isn't it old or something?
Yeah, and it's not.
It's not. No,
she
like,
looks great.
Yeah, she looks fine.
You're like, are you supposed to be laughing because her boobs are out?
Like, it was like a kind of revealing bikini
Yeah.
and just that she had cleavage, but like, it wasn't like, I don't know.
It was really weird. I did not like that part.
No, I felt super uncomfortable at that part.
Especially as this like is a family friendly movie and like children are viewing this and you're like, what message are children taking away from this? Like that you should be ashamed of your body, or that you should laugh at other people's bodies, or like that she's uncomfortable and laugh at that because she feels like her privacy is being violated. Like either way, it is not good.
No, and the pastor keeps looking at her boobs.
Yeah. Oh God.
it was rough, man. It was not a good time.
So in contrast though, there's this great scene in the movie where Luther gets a Botox.
Oh, yeah.
He gets a Botox injection in his face, and his face is just like all frozen and creepy looking. And then he's trying to eat like this fruit cup. But he can't move his lips, and so it keeps like falling out of his mouth, and it was so ridiculous, but I kind of liked it though. It was funny enough.
Yeah. And he like has to like jerk his head backwards so
And
like the
drop
food
the
will
food
just like
in there.
slide back his throat. Like,
And there's this part where he tries to drink water and it just like flows out of his mouth.
it's like in any other movie it would have been just stupid, but
Yeah.
like I think just at this point in this movie I'm like, yeah, I'll laugh at this part. Like
Sure.
Tim Allen is selling it enough and I'm enjoying it enough. Like this is funny. But a movie like this really makes me think a lot about like humor in films.
Yeah.
And like, why do some scenes work and others don't? Like, what's the missing ingredient of some parts? Like, why am I laughing at this but not that? Like, a movie that's genuinely like hilarious.
Yeah.
You're just kind of, it feels so effortless. And you're like, oh, of course this is funny. Like, why wouldn't it be? But then you see a movie like this that really struggles a lot to be funny.
Yeah, and there are parts that are funny, and then there's parts that aren't at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is. I don't have the answer to that. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know why some scenes work and some don't. But that's a really interesting question.
And I just like watching movies like this make me think about it so much more
Yeah.
than like genuinely good comedies. So I don't know. It's just something I was thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah, so they have the party. Blair has no idea that her parents have literally killed themselves to do this.
Or nearly killed themselves.
And the neighbors are all like, yeah, we're neighbors. Yeah. And then like there's this, like literally the last chapter, Luther goes over to Walt and Bev, their neighbors. The one woman has cancer, and he gives the cruise package to them. He's like, hey, we can't use it. Like I didn't get like the refundable insurance, so it'll all go to waste. Why don't you take it? Blair's gonna be here. We can't use it. You guys go on a cruise. It'll probably be the last thing you do together because your wife is gonna die. That's basically what he says.
That
but
is
not.
the subtext of the entire conversation.
Yeah, he's like, you guys go on a cruise because death is coming. And then it's like this sweet scene, and they're like, thank you, Christmas.
It was the book more so than even the movie. I was like so sentimental.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how dare you? You did not earn this at
No,
all.
and it's too little too late, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if it was sentimental throughout, like, that's fine if you're going for that tone. But it was so, like, mocking and cruel and, like, mean-spirited, like you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden at the end, it's like, oh, like, neighbors love each other and, like, coming together. And Luther does this selfless thing. And it's the spirit of Christmas. And you're just like, I mean, this whole time was just people being jerks to each other.
Yeah.
Like,
The message is all fucked up.
Yeah.
Like I said, it should have been that, oh yeah, Luther and Nora were right, and you don't have to conform to all this like holiday bullshit.
No.
But at the end of the day,
Nora and Luther were punished.
they were punished for not doing it.
Yeah.
They fell in line, and then they get to like feel good about like the
And then
holiday
they had
spirit.
like a happy Christmas time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Luther looks through the front window of his house.
Oh my God.
Like 3 different times.
In the movie, there's like so many window shots where you're outside and you're looking in the window and the snow's falling outside and you see like the lights lights inside and the people laughing inside, and you're like, stop. You only get one window shot.
You only get one.
And there were like 5 in the movie.
Okay, so oh
yeah.
So one guy was invited to the party, and this was kind of a funny part in the book.
Yeah.
Nora runs into him at the supermarket, and she does not remember who he is.
Yeah.
But she just invites him to the party anyway, and he shows up, and he starts talking to Enrique, and he like knows Spanish and lived in Peru, and so it was kind of this funny thing where
Like they got along, and they end up singing carols together.
and like no one knows who he is.
Yeah.
Then in the movie, so Luther's walking back to his house. The burglar comes out of the window.
Oh my God.
And jumps off the roof, and he's about to get away when suddenly the Santa who had been selling umbrellas at the beginning of the movie comes out of nowhere and knocks out the burglar.
With an umbrella.
With an umbrella. And we were like, what?
Umbrella Santa's back.
Umbrella? He's the hero we deserve. I didn't know he'd be coming back. But then it's revealed that he was the mystery man at the supermarket.
And you find out his name is Marty.
Yeah, his name's Marty. And he's like, oh, yeah, I got to get going. It's snowing, and I sell umbrellas really well at this time. So
yeah,
I got to head out. And Tim Allen's like, okay, bye, Santa. And he leaves. And it kind of like leaves this idea like, oh, is he like supposed to be the real Santa Claus?
Yeah, like the mysterious man.
Yeah, this mysterious person who knows everyone and no one knows him. And I did kind of like that a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of putting that, because that was from the character, and him showing up at the party was from the book.
Yeah.
But this little ending thing with him being a Santa Claus person, and you were like, is he the real Santa? Like, was added in the movie.
Yeah.
And I was kind of for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a little hokey, but like kind of
a little bit of Christmas magic.
Yeah, yeah. Then the final shot of this movie.
It pans out on the street.
Yeah, from Luther and Nora.
Yeah.
Pans back. We get this huge shot of all of these lit up houses.
With Frosties on the roof.
With Frosties on the roof. Then the nearest Frosty to the camera, CGI, turns around.
And waves at you.
Waves and like does a wink with like the top hat. And you're like, oh. And then a Santa sleigh, flies in front of the moon.
Yeah.
And it is the car that Marty drove away in just like a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So he is Santa.
He is Santa.
Definitely. And then as he flies by, like with magical sparkles, spells out the end.
Yeah. It is a flourish upon flourish upon flourish.
So many. It was like the Lord of the Rings Return of the King of endings with like, what do we do? Let's do everything.
Let's do a waving Frosty, then let's do a Santa, and then like a glittery the end, and then a pan out shot, and yeah, it was crazy. And they were like, oh, we're left with this like little hint of maybe this man is Santa, and then it was like, well, I guess he's just Santa.
You're,
like,
you're fucking right, he's Santa. And that's what leaves us off at the movie.
It does. So, overall impressions, very contrasting type of message. Basically, the message that the book and the movie is saying, that if you try to go against Christmas, you will be punished and learn the error of your ways. And then once you follow what everyone else is doing and conform to this capitalistic, materialistic Christmas tradition, then everything will go well for you and you'll have like a perfect Christmas moment.
And God help you if you are Buddhist, Jewish, Hindu,
or poor,
Muslim, atheist, or poor.
Yeah.
If you're any of those things,
then you're screwed.
You're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a time in our lives.
What a time. What a time reading this. I know what my answer is, though. I don't know if you want me to tell you.
Yeah, no, you start.
The movie is better. Because it's trash.
Yeah.
It's Christmas trash. And it's at least like kind of lighthearted.
Yeah.
In certain ways. And even though it fails on so many levels, including humor and everything else, it's much less offensive than the book.
Yeah, it has a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That actually surprises me.
Yeah, I don't know if it is quite deserving of a 5%. Like, that is very low.
That's real low.
Like, there's plenty of Christmas trash out there.
Yeah.
That is much lower than this Christmas trash.
I agree. Like, I'm not saying, like, I liked it to any extent, but
No.
I'm surprised, like, more people didn't like it. Because
Yeah.
it's ultimately, like, I wasn't, like, offended or too overly annoyed with it. I'm just like, it's just whatever.
And it is. It's just kind of, like, mindless, like, boring. Not boring, but kind of, like, not interesting
Yeah.
holiday movie.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's not even fine.
No.
It's just whatever.
It's a movie.
It's a movie.
Yeah.
I do have something, though, that I think is very telling of both the book and the movie, ultimately. Hold on, I've got my book here. Okay. This is from when they went to see that movie that Luther hated so much.
That walked out of, yeah.
He said, $8 a ticket for what Luther knew would be another dull 2 hours of overpaid clowns giggling their way through subliterate plot.
Oh. Wow. Yeah.
That sounds a little bit like a certain movie and a certain book.
Yeah. No, that's true. And you know what? I might agree with you that the movie is better because even though the movie is very uneven in the way in its succeeding in certain moments, you know, like there are like funny moments, but they're mostly outnumbered by the not so good moments.
Oh, absolutely.
I would say. But the book is just so offensive in terms of not only like the racist stuff, but comments about women and just like the caricatures feel more awful.
Yeah.
In the book.
Like the book is honestly the most unfunny thing I've ever read.
Yeah.
Like the something that's trying to be funny that isn't funny.
At least the movie has moments where it actually is funny.
It is. There's a few moments in the movie that genuinely had me laughing.
And like, honestly, I feel like a lot of that, and we talked about this, is like the marketing. So this is the movie is supposed to be like a kid's family-friendly movie.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, come on, let's like punch up the script. Like, let's put some more gags in. Like, let's make this funny so kids will like it. And like, that's fine. And I think they made a good choice in that aspect.
Yeah.
Because like, that's who you're targeting your Christmas movies towards anyway. Like, you're targeting it towards children and families most of the time. Whereas in the book, it's like targeted towards adults, but yeah, it doesn't succeed in a funny way. So it's just, I don't know, it's kind of boring.
It's just really, really boring and offensive.
Yeah.
So I'm like, give me the movie any day, people. I'll take Christmas with the Kranks over the book.
Yeah. And I've never read anything else by John Grisham, so I don't know like how much of a departure this is from his other books, but like this was some poor writing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that he writes like that all the time because I haven't read anything else by him, but this is not good. Like, this is not
such a blatant like cash grab holiday piece of crap.
Yeah.
So you've heard it here, people. Christmas with the Kranks
is actually better.
It's better than something.
Yeah.
You didn't think it could be better than something, but it actually is.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad it was only like 170 pages because I don't know if I would have been able to get through any more of it.
No, I couldn't.
It was bad.
God. Let's do a lightning round.
Yeah, lightning round.
All right. So for my first lightning round thing, I wanted to talk about smoked trout because Nora can't get a ham for this party.
Yeah.
She buys smoked trout instead. And it's the same as book in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, everyone is just like, smoked trout? Like, I don't know if it's just because it's for a Christmas party and it's not ham.
Or turkey.
But everyone is shitting on smoked trout.
I mean, I've never had smoked trout. I don't know if it's good or not.
I haven't either, but I mean, can it be that bad that everyone is just like, oh, like at the first thought of it? I don't know, but it just comes across as like really elitist and bullshitty.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
You only have smoked trout for your Christmas party.
You
like,
don't have a turkey or a ham.
I know. So yeah, it was just this weird, like everyone overreacts to it to the max.
Okay, so something I wanted to mention from the movie specifically was Nora's character. She's like wearing this Christmas vest for like part of the beginning. And then later when Blair calls them and tells them that she's coming back, she was just wearing like a sweater. And then she's like, I need my vest. And she like goes into the closet and pulls out the Christmas vest again. She like puts on the vest and she's like, okay, I'm in party mode. I'm ready for Christmas now. And I'm like, what is going on with this like Christmas vest?
I loved it because in the scene earlier when she's wearing it, you notice it.
Yeah.
And you don't know if you're supposed to really notice it that much. But then later when she's like, I have to get the vest, you're like, okay, this was self-aware. I'm glad. Another thing I wanted to mention was just the fucking cat in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's just such a stupid, like, slapsticky thing.
Yeah.
But I swear to God, every noise the cat makes is this canned, like, cat noise that you'd find on, like, an effects board.
Yeah.
Of just, like, like, all of these, like, generic, like,
cat sounds.
Every single time, like, he steps on the tail or, like, something happens to it.
It's like a cartoon noise.
Yeah, there's just a dude with a keyboard and, like, sound effects behind the camera, like, the entire time. It's insane.
So when the police come to sell them calendars, there's this part in the book where they talk about how one year the police did like a sexy police calendar and like had the police officers like in these like sexy poses. But then like everyone was outraged about it. And so they like collected all of them back up and then like burned them or something crazy.
Yeah.
But like Nora had hers and like kept it down in the basement to like look at by herself. And I'm like, what is happening? But it's great though, because like in the movie when the police come, they like show them the calendar and they just show them like the 1 month view. And it's not like a sexy one, but it's sort of like a glam shot police officer one. Like they're kind of looking like very handsome, you know?
It was one of those good visual gags from the movie, actually. It was really funny.
Yeah.
Okay, this was, I don't know, I don't think it was supposed to be as funny as I thought it was, but in the book, Luther just keeps drinking cognac. Like, he keeps just going down to his study and drinking liquor.
Yeah.
And he just keeps, like, drinking more and more as the book progresses.
And he talks about him, like, thinking about, like, how he was going to go down there later.
Yeah. And literally at one point, a passage, not a chapter, but, like, before a line break, the last line is, Luther was closer to the cognac than he wanted to admit. I'm like, Jesus.
You're
like
going down this dark path.
Really sounds like a brewing alcoholic problem. Like, he was closer than he wanted.
Okay, so there's this part in the movie where, and in the book too, but it's played up more in the movie, where Nora is talking to this man that runs this greeting card company. And Nora always buys Christmas cards to send out to everyone. And then she always buys Christmas invitations for their party that they have. And so he's like calling her up and he's like, hey, you haven't placed your order yet. And she's like, yeah, we're not doing it. We're not doing Christmas. But in the movie, like she actually runs into him on the street and he's like kind of like stalking her and like following her. And he's like, you're ordering your cards and stuff. She's like, I can't right now. No. And
he's the most aggressive card salesman of all time.
Yeah. And then she's like, I'm late for lunch. And she goes into lunch and she's meeting with like her socialite friends or something. And then the card guy comes in and he's like, oh, Nora, I just want to tell you that you didn't order your invitation cards either. And she's like, yeah, I don't need them. I won't need them. And everyone's like, what? You're not having your party? And he like publicly shames her in front of these women. And then she's talking to them later and it like shows the card guy like sitting at another table with other women and like talking to them and then like looking over at Nora like, what? And like the card guy is like spreading gossip about her.
We literally, because you don't see him for a few minutes while Nora's still talking to her friends. And when it cuts back to him sitting at a table, we're like, he's still there?
He's telling on her. He's
like actively gossiping about her behind her back. So over the top. That's it for the lightning round though. Yeah. Some pretty good stuff to mine from this one.
Oh, yeah. This was, I mean, even though it was terrible to read and kind of not that great to watch, It was fun to talk about.
It was. It always makes it worthwhile because we know we'll at least get to vent.
And crap on it later.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening to our special Christmas holiday episode. Just so you guys know, we will be back on the first Wednesday of January. So we won't be having our episode come out in 2 weeks. It'll actually be 3 weeks from when this episode is released. So the first Wednesday in the new year, which is January 3rd, our new episode will be out.
Yep. If you want to email us with suggestions or thoughts, you can find us at cover2creditspod@gmail.com. Or if you want to follow us on Twitter and tweet at us with other suggestions, we are at cover2credits. That's the number 2. And if you could leave us a review on iTunes, that is the best thing you can do right now to support the podcast.
Give us a little Christmas gift.
Show your Christmas spirit and conform to societal expectations of leaving an iTunes review. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you in the new year.
See you in the new year.
Bye.
Bye.